Welcome, gentle minds, to Sleepy Scientist, where curiosity drifts quietly into the stars. Here, science isn't rushed, it breathes. Each night, we'll slow down time, explore the universe with wonder, and let the soft rhythm of discovery carry you into peaceful sleep. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let your imagination float, because the journey begins now. You begin by floating, not in water, not in air, but in something deeper, space itself. It stretches quietly in all directions, a soft, endless fabric beneath your body, beneath all things. You feel it more than you see it, a motion so calm, so vast, it goes unnoticed by your daily life. But it is happening, everywhere, always. The galaxies are drifting apart. You are part of that drift. Everywhere, always. The galaxies are drifting apart. You are part of that drift. Even your body, your breath, your thoughts, all of them are caught in this gentle movement, not rushing, not tearing, just widening. Imagine placing ink droplets on a balloon, then slowly inflating it. The droplets don't move on their own, but they grow farther apart as the surface stretches. That is how galaxies move, not because they are flying away, but because the space between them is growing. You float in this breath of the universe, and now for the first time you become aware of it. There is a force beneath the movement, not loud, not aggressive, but ever present. This force is not gravity, it's not pulling things in, it's doing the opposite. It's pushing, gently nudging the universe outward. This force is called dark energy. You do not see it, you cannot touch it, but its fingerprints are everywhere. For centuries people believed that gravity ruled the cosmos. It made apples fall and planets orbit. It shaped stars and galaxies into spinning arms and glowing clouds. Gravity pulls. But then something surprising was discovered. The universe wasn't just expanding, it was accelerating. The galaxies weren't just drifting apart, they were drifting faster and faster, as if some invisible hand were pressing them gently away from each other. This went against everything we expected. Gravity should slow things down, but here the universe was speeding up, as if space had its own reason for stretching, as if emptiness had a will. Dark energy became the name we gave to that reason, not because we understand it, but because we felt it. In the quiet separation of the stars, you rest in that awareness now. You picture yourself between two galaxies. They do not tug at you, they do not call, they simply part ways, and the space between them expands like a sigh. You do not resist, there is nothing to push against. This force does not shove, it only grows. You drift through time, from the early universe, dense and glowing, to the vast stretched cosmos of today. The galaxies are farther apart now, the stars are dimmer in the sky, but they are still moving, still dancing in the long rhythm of expansion. You ask, how can something come from nothing? How can empty space have energy? Science does not yet fully know, but it sees the effects. Through telescopes, we measure distant galaxies. Their light shifted is not just motion, it is expansion itself, space growing between us and them. You lie still and let this image settle. The universe is not full of things moving through a container. The container is growing. The distance is deepening, not because of travel, but because of the stretching of space itself. And the more space there is, the more dark energy there is, because dark energy doesn't thin out like matter. It stays constant. The larger the universe, the more space it fills, the stronger its push becomes. It is a quiet feedback loop, gentle, persistent. You feel its calm power now, like a tide that lifts all things, but never crashes. The earth, your room, your pillow, they are too small to be stretched by it. Gravity holds them together here. But in the spaces between galaxies, between clusters and clusters of stars, dark energy stretches freely. You wonder if this force has a beginning. Where did it come from? Did it appear suddenly, or was it always there, woven into the first breath of time? You do not need the answer tonight, only the question, the wondering, the stillness it brings, because even the unknown can comfort you when it is gentle and vast. And so you breathe, falling into rhythm with the universe itself, in and out, in and out, in, just like space, expanding. You begin to sense a pattern, not random, not chaotic, but balanced, delicate. Dark energy doesn't overpower. It simply waits. It waits for gravity to let go, and then it begins to move. It expands the gaps. It stretches the stillness. It unfolds the silence. And in that unfolding, you float. No fear, no rush, only movement, soft as thought. You are a part of this expansion. You were born in it, your atoms arranged in a universe that had already been growing for billions of years. And still it continues. Still space stretches quietly beyond the stars. You do not fall, you drift. And in this drifting, you feel not lost, but found. You are held by the gentle drift of everything. And as you close your eyes, you sense a deeper layer beneath this cosmic stretching. Beneath the galaxies gliding apart, there is something older still. A memory in space itself. A presence that shaped not just motion, but the very possibility of expansion. What could have begun such a stretch? You float toward that memory now, toward the first breath and the silent force behind it. There is movement even in stillness. You lie still, and yet you're drifting. Not through oceans or air, but through something far older, deeper, space itself, a sea with no waves, no current you can feel, and yet it carries you forward, not quickly, not suddenly, but always. You float in this vast, quiet tide, and around you the stars glide farther apart, not because they move through space, but because space itself is stretching, gently pulling them away from one another like threads in a growing tapestry. There's no roar, no warning, just a soft widening. You might imagine the universe like a great loaf of bread, rising slowly in an oven, galaxies as raisins embedded in the dough. As the bread rises, the raisins move apart, not because they crawl or shift, but because the dough between them swells. That is what the universe does. It expands, quietly, endlessly. At one time, long ago, we thought it would stop. The stars seemed steady, the galaxies organized. Astronomers believed gravity would be strong enough to slow this cosmic breath, maybe even reverse it someday. Like a thrown ball caught by Earth's pull, returning to the hand. But when we looked deeper, more carefully, more patiently, we saw something surprising. Galaxies weren't just drifting apart. They were speeding up, as if some hidden force were pushing space open. And so we learned the universe isn't coasting, it's accelerating, slowly, like the deep breath of a sleeper, but definitely. Galaxies are not simply leaving each other behind, they're being pushed away by something, the pressure with no sound, no shadow, no surface. A presence felt only in distance. We call it dark energy, not because it's made of darkness, but because we do not yet understand it. And yet here it is, moving everything. Silently. You close your eyes and feel the scale. Beyond your walls, your town, the planet, and its orbit, there is the solar system spinning around a center. Beyond that, the Milky Way swirls with hundreds of billions of stars, each with its own story. And beyond that, galaxies. Millions, then billions, spotted across the sky like lanterns in fog, each one moving away from the next, the space between them stretching. You ride this expansion as though on a great invisible tide. You don't feel it in your bones or in your skin, but still, it is there. In the numbers of telescopes, in the red shift of light, in the growing quiet between galaxies. It is the rhythm of the cosmos, not rushing, not crashing, just widening. Breath by breath, and always the motion continues, even when you sleep. There is peace in knowing that this expansion is soft. It does not tear. It does not burn. It does not break the bonds of atoms or the spin of moons. It respects the closeness of the solar system, the structure of your cells. Only at the grandest scales does it move, across light years, across time, a river you can't see, flowing through everything. If you reached out to touch the edge of a galaxy millions of light years away, it would already be farther than it was a moment ago, not because it rushed away, but because the space between you and it grew like silk pulled gently apart. The galaxy itself doesn't move quickly. It is the space that changes, and this change happens everywhere, all at once. So the question comes, what causes it? What lies behind this quiet, steady push? You wonder, could it be something in the vacuum itself? Not a thing, not a particle, but a property. Like how silence still has presence. Like how still water still holds depth. Some scientists think dark energy is part of space itself, woven into its being. As space expands, there is more of it, and the more of it there is, the more it pushes. Are the spaces self-capable of ghost? Or is it part of the same substance that is not depth, like a song that grows louder as more verses are added? Others imagine fields we cannot yet detect, or rules we have not yet grasped. Some picture vacuum energy, like a faint hum built into the silence. But whatever its true name, dark energy leaves its fingerprints in the sky, and it is everywhere. You belong to that motion, to that great, unending widening. Your heart beats inside a body made of star remnants, drifting in a cosmos carried by a force too quiet to feel, but too vast to stop. It is humbling and strangely soothing, because in this universe, movement does not always roar, growth does not always shout. Some of the most powerful forces arrive as silence, as softness, as space. And this slow expansion continues, whether we look up or not. It is the breath of the universe, and you are part of it. Still lying down, you imagine the future, one not filled with noise or collapse, but with spreading light, with galaxies too far to see, with stars whose light will take longer and longer to reach us. You float toward that future, like a leaf on a very slow wind. And yet, how do we know all this? How do we measure what we cannot see or touch? The silence may be expanding, but how can we listen to it? How can we trace the invisible? Perhaps it begins with light. You are drifting now, not through the stars themselves, but through our efforts to understand them. All around you lie the tools of minds that dared to ask, what lies beyond what we can touch? An old sundial stands in silence, its shadow fixed in the soft dusk of memory. A bronze telescope waits patiently atop a hill, its lens dim from years of quiet watching. And far above, orbiting Earth like distant lanterns, satellites peer into the deep dark. Each tool a question, each observation a whisper of something we cannot see. You float through this lineage of wonder, this human tradition of looking up. We cannot touch dark energy, we cannot bottle it, weigh it, or see it swirl in space, but we can notice what it does. And, like wind in tall grass, its presence is revealed not by its body, but by its influence on everything it passes through. So we begin always with light. Light is the quiet messenger of the universe. It travels unshaken through time, unchanged in its honesty. From the hearts of stars to the backs of your eyes, it tells stories without words. Every color, every wavelength, a chapter. Every red shift, a clue. You float beside a beam of starlight, now traveling across space. For millions of years, it has crossed emptiness, and now it reaches Earth, where instruments wait like open palms, When light stretches, its wavelengths, pulled longer as it moves through space, it turns redder. This is red shift, a signature, a fingerprint, a sign that the galaxy it came from is moving away. And the farther the galaxy, the greater the redshift. This is how we know the universe is expanding. And from this stretching light, we begin to sense dark energy. You drift beside Edwin Hubble nearly a century ago. He gazes at fuzzy specks through a telescope, specks we now call galaxies. He measures their light, he measures their distance, and something wondrous emerges. Galaxies are moving away, all of them, not in random directions, but outward, together. It is the first quiet hint that space itself is growing. Decades later, you glide forward in time. Now, you float beside sensitive space telescopes, WISE, Planck, Euclid, machines that do not see like we do. They look in microwaves, in infrared, in deep cold signatures of the cosmos. They see not just stars, but shadows, not just heat, but memory. From these delicate measurements we find more clues. In the gentle glow left behind by the Big Bang, called the cosmic microwave background, we see slight wrinkles, tiny temperature differences. These wrinkles are like ripples on the surface of an ancient pond, evidence of sound waves in the early universe. And when we measure the size and spacing of these ripples, we learn how the universe has stretched since its birth. We begin to map its history. Like archaeologists, reading the rise and fall of ancient civilizations, cosmologists read the expansion of space in light's long echoes. You drift now through graphs not made of ink, but of galaxies. Sky surveys have mapped the cosmos, millions of galaxies spread out across billions of light years. And what we find is this: the farther we look, the faster space expands. This shouldn't be. Gravity by itself should slow things down, but the expansion is accelerating. You feel that quiet shock, that soft rearrangement of what we thought we knew. There is something else, something that doesn't pull but pushes, something woven through space itself. This is the presence we call dark energy. It does not reveal itself in pictures or particles, but in patterns, in how galaxies cluster, in how starlight stretches, in how space changes its shape. Even the lives of stars whisper about it. You drift past a supernova, an exploding star bright enough to outshine its galaxy. These explosions, called Type Ia supernovae, are steady and reliable. They act like cosmic lighthouses, always glowing with the same intrinsic brightness. By comparing how bright they appear to how bright we know they are, we learn their distance. And in 1998, astronomers used these supernovae to learn something extraordinary. The universe was not just expanding, it was expanding faster than expected. This was the clearest clue yet. A force, silent and unseen, was pushing everything apart. You feel the gentle thrill of discovery, how something invisible became undeniable, how careful watching repeated questions and patient measurements revealed a force stronger than all galaxies combined. And still no one knows exactly what it is. But we can measure it. We can see how it shapes the growth of the universe. We know that it accounts for nearly 70% of all the energy in existence. We know that without it, the cosmos would look and behave very differently. And so you rest in this knowledge that light stretched across time has become our quiet teacher. We have learned to see what cannot be seen. You feel the humility of this truth. Not everything can be touched to be known. Not all knowing comes from sight or grasp. Some truths are only visible in motion, in influence, in the slow, graceful drift of stars across time. And you drift with them now, between stars and across billions of years. You ride the invisible tide, one that began long ago and one that carries you still. And yet a question begins to rise like a soft echo. If this force moves against gravity, if it pushes instead of pulls, what happens when the two compete? What happens when the cosmos is caught in a quiet cosmic tug-of-war? You are floating now, not through silence alone, but through tension. Soft, vast, and patient. Everywhere around you the universe is stretching, but within that stretch something familiar fights to hold on. You feel gravity's pull. It tugs at your body, your breath, the chair beneath you. It holds you on Earth, keeps the moon circling above, pulls stars into galaxies and galaxies into clusters. Gravity is not loud or sudden. It's a soft, constant yearning. Everything pulling everything else closer. Now imagine the entire universe as a great, loosely woven net. Each knot is a galaxy, each thread a connection of gravity. This net wants to tighten, to draw inward, to bind what's drifting apart. But something else is there, woven through the same net, not a knot, not a thread, but a pressure. A quiet push from the spaces in between. This is dark energy. You feel yourself suspended between these two forces, one that draws things inward, one that pushes outward. Not a battle in the way storms rage, but a balance, changing, shifting, tilting over time. For most of cosmic history, gravity was stronger. It pulled the early universe together. 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 23, and 23, and 23. Aha, whispered the small smile. The same stranger was talking to the same stranger, forming stars, galaxies, structures. The expansion slowed under gravity's embrace, but dark energy was always there even then, not asleep, not gone, just small, like a whisper in a crowded room. And as the universe grew, the crowd thinned. Galaxies drifted apart, distances stretched, and with more room, dark energy had more space to fill. And as it filled more space, its effect grew stronger. You imagine this change not as a sudden shift, but as a candle flame outlasting the wind. Over billions of years, Gravity began to lose ground, not because it weakened. Gravity does not fade, but because space itself grew, and dark energy grew with it. Eventually, the quiet push overcame the patient pull. Now you rest in a universe where expansion accelerates. Gravity still binds galaxies, solar systems, but on the grandest scales, it cannot hold everything together. Imagine a distant pair of galaxies. Long ago they were neighbors, linked by gravity's thread. But now the space between them swells too quickly. The thread stretches, weakens, and finally slips loose. Not with a snap, but with a quiet drift. You may wonder, could this mean an end to everything connected? Perhaps, but not yet. Gravity still reigns within galaxies. The stars in the Milky Way are bound tightly. Your solar system orbits its center with grace and steadiness. Dark energy does not tear apart stars or atoms. It whispers only where distances grow wide, between clusters of galaxies, across cosmic planes. So here you float between closeness and distance, between the force that gathers and the one that separates. Two invisible hands. Gravity is the hand you know. It comforts with its certainty. Drop something and it falls. Look at the moon and it circles in a dance that hasn't broken for eons. Dark energy is the unfamiliar hand. It does not grasp. It releases. It does not pull. It expands. It's hard to imagine them together, but you are proof of their balance. You exist in a universe where both are real, both true, both part of the story. Even now, cosmologists try to understand this balance. They run models, try to understand this balance. They run cosmic simulations of billions of years. They see galaxies form, spin, collide, and drift apart. They change the strength of dark energy in the equations and watch the universe evolve differently each time. Too little dark energy, and the universe would collapse. Too much, and stars would never have formed at all. So the balance we have is fragile and beautiful. You feel it in your bones, this quiet equilibrium, not unlike the balance within your own body. Heart and lungs, tension and rest, waking and sleep. The universe breathes this same way. But what does the future hold if this tug-of-war continues? If gravity loses more ground? If space expands faster and faster? Will everything fall apart? Some scientists imagine that far future, galaxies too distant to see stars, drifting alone, a dark sky with fewer and fewer lights. Will that fade off? Or fewer and fewer lights? Some imagine a Big Ripper moment when expansion accelerates so wildly it pulls even atoms apart. Others believe the push will settle, that dark energy may not grow forever, that the cosmos will reach a gentle pace, coasting into eternity like a boat on a calm lake. For now, no one knows. And perhaps that's what makes this story so soothing. Its mystery is part of its grace. Not every answer is urgent. Some questions stretch out like space itself, inviting wonder, inviting calm. You breathe in deeply, feeling the invisible tension that holds everything around you in harmony. It is not a war you hear, only a gentle negotiation, a balance older than time, a conversation between the familiar and the unknown. And still the mystery deepens, because if dark energy now dominates the universe, was it always there? From the beginning, did it whisper through the very first breath of space, waiting for its time to grow? What does the origin of this quiet force reveal? To understand, you must drift further back to where everything began. You begin to drift backward now, backward through centuries of stargazing, through billions of years of cosmic unfolding, past the light of stars still shining in deep time. You slip beyond the galaxies, beyond gravity's reach, toward a beginning so bright, so dense, so full, the entire universe once fit inside a point no larger than a breath. This is not silence, not yet. This is the birth cry of the cosmos. You arrive at the beginning, not in a place, but in a moment when time itself awakens. The Big Bang, not an explosion, but an unfolding, not a blast through space, but the birth of space itself. From this first heartbeat of existence, everything begins to change. The universe is hot, pressed tightly, full of light, and ocean particles dance in a frenzy, too close to be stable, too new to know what they will become. You float here in the warmth of creation, watching the rules of physics begin to right themselves. First energy, then matter, then the first laws. Gravity arrives, gentle but determined, and light, that timeless messenger, begins its endless journey. And within all this wildness, within the expanding, cooling sea of energy, is a secret barely noticeable, a quiet presence that does not fight for attention. It does not roar like fusion or swirl like galaxies, but it is there, waiting, watching, growing, only when the time is right. This is the earliest whisper of what we now call dark energy. Back then, it plays a different role. The infant universe goes through a strange and powerful phase called inflation, a sudden, furious expansion that fades into unphlegmatic isolation. But it is there, waiting, watching, wondering. A void of sense formation, a sudden, furious expansion, 8 trillion times faster than what we see today. It lasts just a heartbeat, but it stretches the fabric of space like a balloon inflating in an instant. Mountains of energy pour out, and all of space becomes smooth, flat, balanced. Scientists believe inflation may have been driven by something like dark energy, a field in space that pushed outward faster than anything else could resist. Not forever, just long enough to set the stage for every atom, every star, every breath you take now. You float in this early moment, watching space stretch beyond what the eye could imagine, and then, as suddenly as it began, inflation ends. The pushing stops. and the universe exhales into a slower, gentler expansion. Matter takes over, gravity starts to gather, light finds paths to travel, and dark energy, it doesn't vanish, it simply fades into the background. A soft murmur beneath gravity's louder song. It waits for billions of years. Matter dominates. Galaxies form. Stars ignite. Planets coalesce. Life begins to dream on a small blue world. And all the while dark energy is patient. You rest in the knowledge that some things in nature don't rush. Some powers unfold only when the time is right. They grow not with noise, but with space itself. As the universe expands, matter becomes thinner. Gravity's grip weakens over vast distances. In the deepening quiet between galaxies, dark energy begins to speak again. You feel it now, this slow, long arc of cosmic time. A force that helped birth the universe, then stepped back, waiting billions of years before quietly returning to guide it again. And you wonder, is this the same force that drove inflation? Are we seeing the same breath continuing still, but softer, slower, stretched across eons? Science doesn't yet know. Some say yes. Dark energy and inflation might be siblings, both driven by the vacuum, by fields we can't yet name. Others say, no, they may be different actors, two parts of a play we've only begun to read. You float between these thoughts like stars in a widening sea, not lost but curious, not confused but comforted by the mystery itself. Because even in the unknown, there is a pattern. Even in the silence, there is story. And dark energy, whatever it truly is, whatever is in you. Because even in the unknown, there is a pattern. Even in the silence, there is story. And dark energy, whatever it truly is, whatever it is, has shaped that story from the very beginning. You imagine time now, not as a line, but as a river that loops and branches, its flow shaped by forces hidden beneath the surface, forces like gravity, like light, like this invisible expansion. And you are floating in it, not just as a passenger, but as part of the river itself. The hydrogen in your bones was forged after this beginning. The oxygen you breathe was born in stars that wouldn't exist without the balance that dark energy allowed. You are not separate from this cosmic unfolding. You are one of its quiet flowers. And now, as the story continues, you drift forward again, past the wild brightness of birth into the cooler stillness of space, not empty but vast, not silent but humming with forces unseen. What then is the nature of this space itself? If dark energy rises from emptiness, if it lives in the vacuum, then what is a vacuum? What does it mean to call space empty when it holds such power? To understand this, you must let yourself drift into the spaces between stars. You are drifting now through quiet, between the grand spirals of galaxies, between the golden light of stars. There are vast stretches of what we often call nothing. But listen carefully, and you'll feel it. This space is not empty. It is full of something invisible, steady and real. You float weightless in the velvet black ocean of intergalactic space. No sound greets you. No breeze brushes your skin. The stars are distant pinpricks, scattered like dust across eternity. And yet this darkness is not a void. It is a fabric, a presence, gentle and constant. Here you begin to ask, what is a vacuum? On Earth, emptiness might mean a room with nothing in it. No air, no dust, no sound. But in space, even the most silent corners carry whispers of existence. Particles flicker into being and disappear. Fields stretch invisibly across time. Photons, particles of light, pass through, sometimes unchanged, sometimes shifted. Even here, where there are no atoms to feel, you float in a sea of subtle tension. Scientists once imagined space as a passive background, a quiet stage on which matter and light performed their dance. But now, we know space is not a backdrop, it is part of the performance. It bends when mass presses into it. It vibrates with waves like the faint tremble of water from a stone's drop. And, perhaps most mysteriously, it has energy, vacuum energy. You drift through this strange sea. You can't feel it directly, but it's there. A kind of quiet pressure that fills every inch of space, even where there are no stars, no atoms, no light. Dark energy may be tied to this vacuum. A property of space itself. Imagine a calm, endless ocean. There is no wind, no tide, and yet deep beneath a slow, powerful current moves everything. That is what dark energy may be. Not a particle, but a presence. Not a wind, but a pressure. Always there, always gentle, always expanding. You drift beside a thought experiment, one often whispered about in physics. The quantum vacuum. Even the emptiest part of space is filled with fleeting things, tiny particles that pop in and out of existence so fast they can't be caught. They are called virtual particles. Like fireflies blinking in the night, here, then gone. And though each flicker is brief and small, together they give the vacuum its quiet hum, an energy that never quite rests. Some believe this hum may feed dark energy, or even be dark energy. But there's a puzzle. When scientists calculate how much vacuum energy there should be, the numbers are enormous. Too enormous. So large, in fact, that if those numbers were true, the universe would have torn itself apart before it even formed stars. But that didn't happen. The dark energy we observe is gentle, soft enough to allow galaxies to grow, yet strong enough to stretch the cosmos over time. So where is the balance? Why is the dark energy we see so much smaller than theory predicts? No one knows, not yet. You feel the paradox like a whisper at your ear, a presence that must exist, but doesn't behave as expected. It's like standing in a quiet room, hearing a sound, but never finding its source. Still, the fact remains. This emptiness has power. You rest in it now, like a leaf resting on air. Even here, between galaxies, beyond clusters, where no star has ever shone, dark energy is everywhere. It does not disappear when you stop looking. It does not sleep when stars go out. It is written into the very texture of space. And space is always growing. This invisible energy spread evenly throughout the cosmos is not pulled by gravity's hand. It does not clump like matter. It does not gather into suns or spin into planets. It stays smooth, steady, unwavering. It is not concerned with where matter is. It simply is. Everywhere, you realize now that the emptier the universe becomes, the more dominant dark energy grows. In a distant future, billions of years from now, as galaxies drift farther apart, the stars will fade, and the universe will grow colder, darker, more spacious. But dark energy will remain. Its quiet push, continuing even when the last light has gone. This may sound lonely, but it is not. It is peaceful. You lie back in your bed, imagining this soft force beneath you, as natural as breath, as quiet as snow. Your atoms, born from stars, now rest in a universe gently unfolding, carried by an energy that touches everything, even the darkest corners. This invisible pressure shapes the future of the cosmos, one gentle inch at a time, and it leaves you with a question, as soft as a drifting feather. If space itself can hold such quiet strength, how else has the universe changed its shape across time? Perhaps the stars themselves can answer. Perhaps their patterns spread across the sky tell us how the universe has grown. To listen, you only need to look at the map they leave behind. You are drifting through a sky of lanterns. Each one is a galaxy, shining with billions of stars. And yet, so far away, it becomes a dot, as if someone scattered golden dust across the fabric of space. This is the cosmic web, a great lace of light stitched across the dark. And even after so much study, you still have some sound to find your way, but we must look for the stars and the colors they wear. A galaxy of stars, stars see, star setting, it is always changing. Once, astronomers thought the universe might be curved inward like a dome or a bowl, something that would eventually fold back on itself. Gravity would slow the expansion, they believed. Someday, perhaps, it might even reverse. But you float now through a different map, a map that redraws itself, not with roads or borders, but with motion, the motion of galaxies sliding apart, slowly, silently, endlessly. You imagine a piece of parchment with ink dots that stretch apart as the page grows, not because the dots move, but because the page itself is expanding beneath them. This is how space behaves. The galaxies are not racing away, they are carried. The stars you see tonight are clues marking a pattern that reaches far beyond human time. And so we began to chart them. One by one, you drift beside the great sky surveys, projects like Sloan DESE and Euclid, which map the positions of galaxies across billions of light years. Each dot of light becomes a data point, each galaxy a marker in a grand pattern of space's growth. And that pattern reveals something beautiful and strange. Galaxies are not arranged randomly. They follow invisible threads, long filaments stretching across the cosmos, interconnected like veins or neural paths. Between the threads are great voids, enormous empty bubbles where few galaxies live. These structures are frozen echoes of the early universe's first vibrations. You float above this map now, galaxies forming clusters, clusters forming superclusters, the shapes repeating at every scale like a melody echoed in different keys. This arrangement, the shape of the universe, helps us measure how fast it is expanding, not just now, but in the past. By comparing how galaxies cluster at different times, we learn how space has stretched across billions of years. Imagine watching the rings in a tree, each layer telling you how the tree grew year by year. The galaxies do the same. And when we compare their story to what we'd expect from gravity alone, we find something surprising. The map doesn't bend inward, it stretches outward, growing faster than gravity can explain. This is the quiet confirmation of dark energy, not in a single moment, but in the accumulation of patterns. You float beside the numbers now, not cold or hard, but luminous, each one a starlight whisper. They say the universe is flat, not curved like a ball or bowl, but balanced, its geometry smooth and infinite. And in that balance, expansion continues. The map of the stars, once thought to be still, now pulses gently outward. Even constellations, which seem eternal in the night sky, will one day shift, not in your lifetime, not in 1,000 lifetimes, but slowly, surely, the sky itself will change, because the canvas it is painted on is growing. You begin to wonder, how do we trace a map of something we cannot see, something that moves silently, that does not shine? We do it through echoes, the cosmic microwave background, the first light ever released, offers a backdrop to compare everything against. Like fingerprints pressed into soft clay, the early ripples in that light show us how the universe was shaped. Galaxies followed those ripples, growing in the places where the clay pressed deepest. And when we map those places now, we find the same pattern, stretched wider than we expected. We are watching the frame widen. This redrawing of the map isn't dramatic. It doesn't shake the earth or bend the stars. It is gentle, a widening, a loosening of what once seemed bound, and through it we begin to glimpse the future. As space stretches, the light from distant galaxies grows fainter. Eventually, many will drift beyond the edge of what we can see. Their light will never reach us, not because it is too dim, but because space grows faster than light can cross it. It is like sending a message across a river, only to find the river widening faster than your voice can travel. One day, the map will grow quiet, not because the stars are gone, but because the distance will outpace their light, and still dark energy will press onward. But tonight, the map is still here, still glowing, still readable, and you float through it with gentle awe. knowing that you are part of this geometry, a dot on the map, yes, but also a reader of it, a question and an answer. The stars guide you through time. Their patterns trace not only where the universe is, but where it's going. And in those patterns, we find not only structure, but sound. Because what if the map doesn't just show space, but also records echoes from its earliest days? What if the darkness itself still hums with ancient vibrations? You float now not through space, but through memory. Not yours, not humanity's, but the memory of the universe itself. It is a soft place, this moment, dim and warm, filled with the residue of light that has travelled across eternity, and through this light you listen. There was a time, a fraction of a moment after the Big Bang, when the universe rang, not with the music of voices or instruments, but with waves, sound waves rippling through a dense, glowing plasma. The young universe was not silent. It pulsed with pressure. It quivered like a vast drum, stretched tight by energy and gravity. You float now in this early sea, when space was not yet transparent. When photons, the particles of light, bounced endlessly from particle to particle, trapped in a hot glowing fog. In that fog, sound could travel. Ripples began. Tiny overdensities formed. Clumps of matter pulled inward by gravity, but pushed back by radiation. It was a rhythmic dance. Gravity pulling matter together, pressure pushing it apart, back and forth, like breath, like heartbeat. These were called baryon acoustic oscillations, gentle compressions, and rarefactions in the early universe's plasma, like ripples on a pond, like the hum of a bell. And though you cannot hear them now, their echo remains, because around 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the universe cooled enough for light to travel freely. The fog cleared, the first light escaped, and the sound waves froze in place, caught mid-motion. These frozen ripples became the blueprint for structure. Galaxies would later form along the edges of these echoes. Their positions are not random. They follow the memory of sound. You drift gently through one such ripple now. There's no wind, no vibration, but the galaxies curve subtly outward, forming a faint ring of higher density, the shell left behind by a sound wave long silenced. We can measure these rings today. We can see their spacing, observe their size, and compare them across time. Each ripple becomes a ruler, a cosmic measuring stick. The distance between the peaks tells us how far light has traveled, how fast the universe has expanded, how dark energy has grown. You rest beside a satellite, Planck perhaps, or WMAP, tools designed not to hear the echoes, but to read the light that carries their shape. This light, the cosmic microwave background, is the afterglow of that early fog, now cooled to just a few degrees above absolute zero. It fills all of space. You swim in it now, not warm, not bright, but steady, constant. And etched into this ancient light are the fingerprints of the universe's earliest song. Tiny fluctuations, minute differences in temperature, barely there yet, profoundly revealing. They show us where matter gathered, where it spread, and how space itself was shaped. And more than that, they show us how the expansion of the universe has changed. Because the echoes stretch. As space grows, so too does the spacing between the ripples. They move apart like ripples on a pond, when the pond itself begins to grow. This stretching tells us about dark energy. It tells us that expansion hasn't been constant, that it has accelerated. And so we listen, not to the original sound, but to the distance between its remnants. It is like hearing a melody long after the music ends, through the way the room still hums. You float gently in this hum, not sound as we know it, but the memory of motion written into the stars. Even now these echoes shape the way galaxies gather. They influence the structure of the cosmos, not just in theory, but in the maps we draw from sky surveys, in the gentle clustering we observe in billions of galaxies. It is astonishing that a vibration from when the universe was a baby still determines where stars live. And you are here, thinking, breathing, carried by atoms that followed those same ripples. You are the echo too. Your body, a soft arrangement of matter, is part of this grand geometry, this ancient music. And though your ears cannot hear it, your existence resonates with its rhythm. Now you begin to wonder, if sound leaves ripples that shape galaxies, what else could leave such marks? What else could leave such marks? What else could leave such marks? What other forces have pressed their fingers into space, left their signatures for us to find? The echo fades, but your curiosity remains, because even now the universe is not finished writing. It expands, it darkens, it pushes outward, and there are still mysteries that lie ahead. Not in the past, but in the far future. As galaxies vanish from view, as stars burn out, what will become of this expansion? Where does it lead us? What kind of silence waits at the end of time? You are floating forward now, not just through space, but through time itself, gliding gently into the distant, unimaginable future. The stars, you know, are fading behind you. Their warmth once filled the night sky, but you now drift toward a colder, darker era. Billions of years have passed. Galaxies that once gathered in clusters are drifting beyond each other's reach. The universe, still expanding, has become a quiet ocean with fewer and fewer ships. Even light cannot keep up. You pause in this deep time and look back. Once the universe was young, dense, bright, full of activity. Stars formed rapidly. Galaxies danced and collided. Life bloomed in pockets of warmth and dust. But now the dance is slowing. Galaxies are growing lonely. The light between them stretches so far that most will slip beyond what any eye or telescope can see. This is the future dark energy brings. Its presence, once faint, is now the master of the cosmos. It drives the expansion more strongly than ever. Space itself is not still. It continues to swell, carrying galaxies away like lanterns lost in fog. You float through this stillness, and yet it is not empty. Dark energy is here, filling every inch, softly, insistently. Even as the stars go out, the expansion continues, and it will not stop. Eventually, the universe will reach a time when no new stars are born, when the last white dwarfs cool into cold, dark embers, when black holes remain as the final architects of gravity. You hover beside one of them now. It does not shine, it does not speak, but its presence is unmistakable. This is a black dwarf, a star that once shone brightly, now faded into a whisper of heat. And next to it, a black hole, still devouring the darkness, but slowly, ever so slowly evaporating, because even black holes are not forever. They release faint radiation, Hawking radiation, and in the deepest reaches of time, even these giants will vanish. The future stretches on into a time called the degenerate era, and then further into the dark era. You might think of this as an ending, a final hush, but there is still motion, there is still space, and there is still dark energy, pushing outward, always outward. You wonder, will this expansion go on forever? Perhaps. If the nature of dark energy remains constant, if it is truly a property of space itself, then yes, space will keep expanding. Galaxies will grow infinitely far apart. New light will never reach old eyes. The sky will be quiet. But some scientists wonder, what if dark energy grows stronger? Not just steady expansion, but acceleration so fierce that even atoms cannot remain together. This is the theory of the Big Rip. You imagine it, now a future so far ahead that time itself seems stretched, galaxies pulled apart, solar systems unspooled, planets torn from stars, then stars unraveled, then atoms themselves. It would not happen with violence, but with steady, inevitable separation. Not an explosion, but a deep sigh from the fabric of reality. And yet this is only one possibility. It is also possible that dark energy is not eternal, that it may slow or change or reverse, that the cosmos may reach a gentle, resting state, a balance where expansion and energy settle into peace. You do not need answers tonight. You float, not to solve, but to rest in the unfolding. This vision of the future, so wide, so empty, is not cold, it is calm. It reminds you that change is constant, that even stars must sleep, that even time stretches out like a lullaby. And you, made from atoms, born in ancient stars, are part of that story. You are carried by this expansion, you are shaped by it, and though your lifetime is short, compared to the universe you live within, its grand rhythm, you feel it even now, a quiet widening in your chest, a breath that follows the breath of the stars. Dark energy, once a mystery, now feels like an old friend. Not cruel, not kind, just present, just real. And you wonder, If all of this began with such perfect balance and continues with such gentle force, what lies beyond the final moment of expansion? Is there a border to time, or is the future as infinite as space itself? You drift now through these questions, not needing answers, only motion, only stillness, only the comfort of knowing that the cosmos continues, softly, patiently, always outward, and though your eyes may close, the universe does not stop. Even in the quiet there is movement, even in the darkness there is story. And so you rest as the future unfolds without end. But before you fade into dreams, a final question rises gently in your thoughts. If the universe is expanding into nothing, what is space stretching into? Now you drift where questions gather like mist at the imagined edge of everything. There is no wall here, no fence, no frontier line, only an expanding canvas so vast and smooth it slips between your thoughts. You are not outside the universe, you cannot be. There is no outside, but you can imagine the horizon, a shell of light the farthest you can see, drawn by the speed of light and the age of time. Beyond it more universe may exist, galaxies you'll never know, stars whose light will never reach you, not because they aren't real, but because space between you and them is growing faster than their light can travel. You pause here, hovering at this gentle limit. It does not resist you. It does not close. It simply is. And you ask, if space is expanding, what is it expanding into? It feels like a paradox. It is space itself that stretches, not through a room, but as the room. Imagine an inflating balloon. Dots on its surface grow farther apart as the balloon swells. They are not moving through the air. They are carried by the surface, growing now. Take away the air, take away the inside and the outside, leave only the surface. That surface is your universe, It grows not into space, but as space. This is hard to hold. It drifts through your thoughts like a cloud changing shape as you try to grasp it, but don't chase it. Let it float. What you're touching now is not just space. It's the boundary between knowing and not knowing. Some call it the unobservable universe, the part we cannot reach, even with the fastest light or the deepest time. This is where language thins, where theories stretch like the very fabric they describe. Some physicists imagine multiverses, a foam of many universes, each with its own rules. Others wonder if space is born from something deeper still. Quantum fields, vibrating strings, dimensions beyond sight. But in your quiet bed, under your quiet stars, you do not need to decide. You only need to wonder, because even if space has no edge, it invites you to imagine one, not as a wall, but as a question. What lies beyond what we can measure? What breathes outside breath itself? You float in this question now, like a leaf on still water, like a star in deep night, and then you drift further back to where it all began, to that first moment, the beginning of space and time, the Big Bang, not an explosion from a point in space, but the birth of space itself, a moment when time began, when before had no meaning, when even the idea of outside did not exist. You breathe slowly, imagining something coming from nothing. But what is nothing? Can there ever be true emptiness? Or is even nothingness full of potential? Some theories suggest the vacuum, the nothing, is not truly empty, that energy can fluctuate, that particles can briefly appear, that from this trembling quiet a universe could arise, not born in time, but with time, not rising into a space, but becoming space itself. You lie still, letting this idea pass through you like air. You do not need to solve it, only feel its shape, because whatever the truth, you are here, a piece of this vast unfolding, a mind that can ask, a body that can feel the mystery stretch outward. Dark energy may be a hint, a soft, persistent reminder that even nothing is not quite nothing, that even silence has a pulse, that even the dark holds possibility. And maybe this is the answer. There is no outside, to reach, no edge to find, because the universe is not only out there, it is also in here, in your breath, in your blood, in the rhythm of your heartbeat. You are made of stardust, forged in cosmic fire, cooled in the arms of galaxies, drifting now in the gentle current of space's unfolding. You are not apart from the universe. You are part of its fabric. And though space stretches beyond your reach, you carry its story within you. You close your eyes. You feel it all slow, not to end, but to rest, to pause, to breathe. And even as you drift to sleep, the universe expands, gently, endlessly, into a silence that sings.